Dolphins fans, I was looking at some analytics over the last 2 weeks, and 51.5% of you who have watched our videos are not subscribed. That is just flat out unacceptable, and if you're watching the show, why not hit that sub button? We cover the Dolphins on a daily basis, and we're so close to another milestone of 57K. So hit that sub button and help us get there in the next week or so. How about the new intro, fellas? But anyway, I am Nic Rohloff. This is Dolphins Today, and we're talking some salary cap news on the Dolphins because Chris Grier is an absolute legend, genius, masterclass, whatever you want to call it. He did that because Calais Campbell's numbers finally came in on the contract he signed last Thursday, and the Dolphins, as David pointed out here, are getting away with murder on Calais Campbell's contract. A $1.21 million vet min salary with a $790K signing bonus for just $2 million in total value that came in on Over the Cap today. To be honest, I thought he was going to get $5 to $7 million. At least that's what his cap hit was going to be. But for it to be $2 million, that is absolutely insane. The Dolphins getting Calais Campbell for $2 million against the cap should not be allowed. Roger Goodell should strike the Dolphins of more draft picks. That's how insane it is that they're getting someone who is as productive, experienced, and as good as a leader as Calais Campbell. This just allows Miami to continue to have cap space for the rest of the offseason to address some major needs like extensions and other free agent signings potentially at right guard. Getting Calais Campbell at $2 million is clinically insane. The production he gives you is unbelievable. Last year, 6.5 sacks on a bad Falcons defense, at least in terms of its pass rush. He also is someone that is really good at stopping the run. 10 TFLs last year. Pairing him up with Zach Sealer on the interior defensive line for Miami is just an absolute cheat code, especially when you have Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Shaq Barrett, and Chop Robinson on the outside. This front four is going to be unreal, and they are going to wreak havoc on opposing offensive lines and give quarterbacks nightmares. So after the Calais Campbell signing and the updated cap space, well, this is where things stand for Miami. I didn't see this one coming, but according to Over the Cap, Chop Robinson's rookie contract's in, Patrick Paul is, Marcus Maye's signing is in, and Calais Campbell's is in. And the Dolphins still have $16 million in cap space. Are you freaking kidding me? How do the Miami... Chris Grier, I don't care what your opinion on him is. One thing can be stated with absolute certainty. He is doing an excellent job this offseason. They lost a couple guys, Robert Hunt, Christian Wilkins. They've made the right additions to the roster to replace them, but they've also been able to keep flexibility for the rest of the offseason. Chris Grier has been amazing, and I got 5 moves coming up on what the Dolphins could do with this $16 million in cap space. But before I get to my moves, I want to know what your move would be. What should Miami do with the $16 million in cap space? You can name one thing, you can name multiple, but let me know in the comment section. The number one thing that I'm doing is extending quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, and this should be absolutely no surprise if you ask me. With seeing the other contracts quarterbacks are getting, this is the number one priority for the Miami Dolphins the rest of the offseason. They got about 4 to 5 weeks until players and rookies report to training camp. This contract should be done definitely prior to that. I mean, we've seen the other quarterbacks get paid this offseason. Trevor Lawrence getting a 5-year, $275 million contract with $55 on an annual average basis and $200 million guaranteed. Jared Goff getting 4 for $212, $53 on a yearly basis, and $170 million guaranteed. So I expect Tua to get closer to the Trevor Lawrence deal, but this is something that they should absolutely do. I have talked about getting a Tua contract extension done before training camp. If I'm going to be honest, it needs to be done in the next 2 weeks. Lawrence is done. Goff is done. Dak Prescott wants one. Jordan Love is close to getting one. Get Tua extended so you don't have to see those contracts and have the asking price of Tagovailoa go up. He is a good quarterback. He's a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. And under Mike McDaniel in year 3, he's going to take another leap. Get the extension done ASAP. Let's go, Chris Grier. You've done an excellent job this offseason. You've got one more thing to get done. Another thing that I would do is extend Jevon Holland. This comes in at number 2 on my list. So 2 extensions kind of are the 2 things that I would do the most if I'm Chris Grier, and you have to keep Jevon Holland around. He has been fantastic since being a day 2 pick out of Oregon just 3 drafts ago, and he had an excellent rookie year, followed it up with a terrific sophomore season. Yeah, he was a little bit down last year, wasn't as good in coverage, missed 5 games due to injury, but this is still one of the best young safeties in the entire National Football League and is someone that Miami can build their entire secondary around. And that's the reason why I think keeping Jevon Holland and extending him prior to him potentially hitting free agency next year, because this is the last year of that 4-year rookie contract he signed out of Oregon. So to me, he's the only young guy you have in the secondary. Just think of the team. Poyer, Kendall Fuller, Jalen Ramsey. Sure, you have Cam Smith, but when you talk about your key pieces in this secondary, Jevon Holland's the only young guy that you can keep for the next 4 to 5 seasons. So extend Jevon Holland so he doesn't test free agency next year. And sure, if you get a 2 extension done, you can probably just franchise tag Jevon Holland 1 year from now. But I want to keep him around long term. I don't want to create any bad blood. Keep the really good young guy you have in your secondary by extending him right now. And I'll tell you what, as we said off the top, we have you covered with everything surrounding the Miami Dolphins. And the Dolphins will make more moves the rest of the offseason, whether it be signings, extensions, and when they make those moves, we will have you covered. So hit that sub button and join us here at Dolphins Today. The third thing that I'm doing, I'm actually signing Connor Williams. Williams has been someone really good for the Dolphins over the past 2 seasons, and I didn't expect him to be ready for the regular season, but he actually might be. Adam Schefter had this note earlier on in the week that said former Cowboys and Dolphins free agent center Connor Williams, who is coming off knee surgery, expects to be ready for the start of the season and is in discussions with multiple teams about where to play in 2024. He plans to pick his new team before training camp begins. And if he's ready for the week 1, or at least the first month of the year, this is someone you should absolutely bring back. He has been fantastic for you over the past 1.5 seasons prior to suffering that knee injury halfway through 2023. I know a lot of people have issues with his snapping skills, but if you are bringing Connor Williams back, to me, it's to play right guard, and that's the biggest need on the team. You have Aaron Brewer to play center, who you signed from the Titans. Williams played left guard for the Cowboys before coming to Miami, and you can play him at right guard because he's been one of the highest graded blocking interior offensive linemen over the past 2 seasons. And the one thing that I was always concerned about in terms of signing Connor Williams back is you probably can't afford him, because after the rookie contracts and Calais Campbell, I thought Miami was going to only have about $6 or $7 million in cap space. And unless you got him for the vet min, you would just give yourself not really a lot of flexibility going into the season. But with $16 million, you can sign him to a pretty decent contract, even if you gave him $5 million over this 1 year, because he's coming off a serious injury, so that could be a possibility, and you'd still have $10 million left over. You have the money to sign Connor Williams. Why not bring him back and slot him in at right guard? If you don't want to go for Connor Williams, you could go for one of the other free agent right guards, and probably one of the best, if not the best offensive lineman still out there in NFL free agency, Greg Van Roten. Van Roten is still one of my top targets for the Dolphins this offseason, and with the cap space they still currently have, to me is a no-brainer to address this right guard spot. We've talked in depth about how bad the right guard is because Robert Jones, Jack Driscoll, Liam Eichenberg, and Lester Cotton, I don't have a lot of faith in them to replace Robert Hunt. But Van Roten, who's coming off his best year of his career for the Las Vegas Raiders last season, where he played in all 17 games, had a PFF grade of 75.3 and a pass blocking of 77.4, and that pass blocking grade ranked top 10 in the NFL for interior offensive linemen. He's one of the best pass blocking guys out there for his position. I don't think he would be expensive either, so you would be able to sign him as well as get one of the extensions done that we talked about earlier in the video. To me, it makes just too much sense for Chris Grier to go out there and get a right guard to solidify that offensive line and really take this roster to a new height. If we we talked about two guys here on today's video, Connor Williams and Greg Van Roten. Pick an interior offensive lineman for me down in the comment section. If you want to bring back Connor, type CW. If you'd rather go with Van Roten, who's a more traditional right guard, type those GVRs. The last thing I would do, and this is obviously if you don't sign Connor Williams or Greg Van Roten, but you wanted to get a little crazy. How about a trade with the Chicago Bears and go for Nate Davis, the right guard? If you swing big the rest of this offseason, Nate Davis might be your guy from the Chicago Bears. He has played right guard for most of his career, previously for the Tennessee Titans. Had a down year in 2023 for Chicago, but has been statistically very good throughout his career for the Titans. Right guard's the biggest need for the Dolphins. If you trade for him, it won't cost you that much. He could slot in at right guard, and you can afford him. I'm kind of all in. Chris Grier, going to do it? I mentioned the affordability of Nate Davis. It's because his contract is kind of large in comparison to what you would probably get for Connor Williams or Greg Van Roten. He has an $8.75 million base in both 24 and 25. And who knows if they did strike a deal, how much Miami would have to pay. Likely the base. I don't know if the Bears would take some of the bonuses or some of the added stuff. That's just all part of that salary cap nuance that happens when you are discussing trades. But you couldn't have afforded this with my projected cap space of Miami having only about 10 or 11. But they can now, and they could still have some left over. And I mentioned Davis having good past seasons with the Titans, and I thought he was one of the best interior offensive linemen when Tennessee was humming, man. When they were making AFC championships with Derrick Henry, and they had one of the best run games in the entire NFL. Like, I thought Nate Davis was a big part of that, alongside Ben Jones and alongside Taylor Lewan as well. But Davis really did not play well in 23. Posted career low PFF grades, only played in 660 snaps, missed countless games, and that's kind of been a theme for Nate Davis over the past two seasons. Only playing 682 snaps and then following it up with 663. Like, he has been a little injury prone and MIA over the past two seasons in the NFL, which is why, even though I think he's a solid ball player, it's not going to cost you much. Like, because of the 2 years left on his deal, 2 seasons where he kind of declined and didn't play all 17 games, it's likely going to only cost you a 5th or 6th round pick. And for that price tag, like, I could be in. This is a high upside trade with not a ton of downside either. Sure, the $8.75 million isn't great, but he's better than Robert Jones and Jack Driscoll. Like, that is for sure. And if you want to complain about making this move and say, well, he doesn't play enough games, I understand it, but if he plays 12 and you only have to rely on Robert Jones and Jack Driscoll for 5, it's better than relying on the two of them for 17. So that's kind of my point here. Make sure you do follow me over on Twitter, because you would have known about the Calais Campbell contract news on my Twitter before this video. So go follow me at Nic_Rohloff. I'm tweeting about the Fins on a daily basis. My DMs are open as well, so if you want to shoot me a question, I'm not afraid to answer. One more time, at Nic_Rohloff's the handle.